lies will be exposed. That's all. And anyone who takes that the wrong way know why they take it the wrong way.
We knew going into 2025, we were going to see things being revealed, and we indeed were able to watch as the party died. Now, I initially did a reaction / initial breakdown video of this song when it first released, and I haven't really gone back to revisit it and like really sit with it. So I wanted to do sort of a brief breakdown and get a little bit more into the nitty-gritty details of it before we continue into the rest of the video, just so we can kind of see how the song really reflects what's going on in the industry. Before we get into the substance of the song and the words themselves, I do want to talk about kind of some context around the song. You know, all the songs during the beef and after that were released by Kendrick, they were all released on a specific date during a specific time, and each cover had a specific meaning to it. It was a detail that went along with basically what the song was going to talk about. So this song was specifically released on 9/11, and the cover art were 2 black Air Forces, 2 shoes that were perfectly placed in a way that could resemble twin towers. Again, tying back to this being released on 9/11, on a date that the United States was attacked by another country, and the organization that attacked the US attacked due to them not really agreeing with the way that America was moving. Now, obviously, there's a lot more to that. That's just kind of very general explanation, but it ties into this song the same way that this other country attacked the US and the Twin Towers to kind of make everyone stop and realize what was going on and kind of reset the way that we moved in America. Is the same way that Kendrick is dropping this song, and you know, coming from, we can say, the other country that doesn't agree with the way that hip hop is moving recently and is trying to make people stop and look around and realize what's going on. Now, Professor Skye, I did watch his video on this. The way I like to do my breakdowns, I like to read it, listen to it a few times, do my breakdown, and then I like to watch other people's breakdowns, people who I look up to, just to kind of see things that I missed or to piece pieces together that I wasn't able to do. But Professor Skye pointed out that Kendrick may have known, because this was specifically dropped right before, I think it was the Music Video Awards, and he may have known that Taylor Swift and Post Malone were going to win Song of the Summer over Not Like Us. Now, this has significance in itself because Post Malone came into the game, like, we knew Post Malone from White Iverson. Like, that is how he kind of got his name. He used hip hop to get to where he is now. And then he does an interview saying that he kind of switched over to a different genre because he felt like hip hop was where you go just to have fun. Hip hop is what you look to when you just want to party and have a good time. It's not where you go that if you want to cry or if you really want to get some feelings off. And it's just disrespectful to the genre because hip hop is all of those things. You can turn on hip hop if you want to cry. You can turn on hip hop if you are angry or upset at someone. You can turn on hip hop to work out to. There's so many things that hip hop has. And so just to put us in this box of being a party, it's sad. It's unfortunate that, you know, that genre was the one that boosted Post Malone up to where he is. If he didn't come in, would he have been able to go country and be as big as he was? So I think it's interesting that Kendrick chose specifically to drop a song called Watch the Party Die before a award show that was going to award these 2 artists who said that it was a song of the summer. People are still listening to Not Like Us. People don't even remember the song that won for that music video awards, and that was only 2 years ago, 2 years ago. And obviously him specifically choosing the Black Air Forces that were beat up in our community, we kind of know what that means. Someone who is wearing those is, they got busy, they did what needed to be done. And again, a symbol of this outside force who is not agreeing with the way things are moving, coming in to drop this bomb on the industry in general and kind of wake everyone up and tune into what's really going on. So let's actually get into the words. Kendrick starts the song saying, "I think it's time we watch the party die." Now, Professor Skye made a good point. He pointed out that Kendrick is very specific in the words that he uses. He doesn't say, "let's kill the party." He doesn't say, "let the party end." He specifically says, "let's watch the party die." Or I think it's time we watch the party die. And when I think of that, or when I hear that, I think of literally sitting on the side and watching as things unfold. Like, when or in movies, when someone runs up on someone, like I'm thinking specifically mob movies, because this whole era, the post-beef GNX era, I've been saying, reminds me of a mob movie where someone has just pulled up on someone, kind of, shot up the place, and then you stand over them and watch as they like take their last breaths. That's how I imagine this. And we were when this dropped, we were in the middle of watching, Diddy's house had just gotten raided, and people were starting to talk a little bit more about his case and what things that were going on around him. Videos were being released, court proceedings or court filings were being read and talked about. This was right before the GNX tour, right before the Super Bowl. Around this time, Drake had also already went to the courts and filed a lawsuit. So there was a lot going on around this time. Obviously, this was post-beef. This was after the pop-out that Kendrick had just did in the summertime, which also goes along with him specifically choosing American dates. He did the pop-out on Juneteenth. I think he released his Super Bowl announcement on July 4th, Independence Day. And it was another thing that he released, the Not Like Us video on a significant American date. Same with this being on 9/11. So there's a lot going on around this time, and we were literally watching as the party was dying. He says, "the shit done got too wicked to apologize." So what is this shit? The shit is the party. Now, what is the party that he's talking about? The party, to me, how I understood it, was inauthentic music, making hip hop out to be just a party. Like I had mentioned with Post Malone saying that even rappers who were in the industry or are in the industry, focusing solely on music that's going to get the girls hype or music that you can play in the club. There's so much focus on that. And also putting certain values in the music that is very shallow. I'm speaking specifically to rappers who were using substances. And I don't mean just like, oh, I'm hanging out with my friends smoking a J. Like, no, they are pushing taking pills, popping mollies, popping perks, things like that. Like, these are not things that should be normalized. And the more that you talk about it in music and make it seem as if it's normal, these kids are listening and they are also following and also assuming that it is normal to partake in these types of things. So to me, that's what I took as the party. Obviously, there are specific people who kind of are the image of the party. Diddy, for example, Drake, for example, two artists that really were, one, Diddy, a pioneer of the party and really wanting to focus on bringing the party into hip hop. And Drake really continuing that idea of, I'm going to make music that you can play in the club, quote unquote. And, you know, he's saying it's too wicked to apologize. Like, these people have been running rampant in the genre, in our spaces, not just the rappers, but also these streamers and podcasters, and have not been held accountable. There's no accountability being held. And he follows that with saying, I'm going to get him whacked and disqualified. So not only am I going to take you out, but I am going to expose your character. I'm going to make it to where you can't even be considered as a great or considered as someone that needs to be talked about when it in regards to talent And we also saw lots of reference songs being leaked, lots of other information being found out to disqualify these rappers, these podcasters, these streamers. We even kill the killers because they like taking innocent lives. Burn the whole village, we start over, it's really that time. I think when he talks about innocent lives, he's not just saying like literally a killer going to take innocent lives, but as I was saying before, these rappers pushing certain behaviors, but also Diddy and his allegations taking the innocent lives of people who wanted to be in the industry, people who were just trying to chase their dreams. And not even just Diddy, but other people that have been named, like Drake. I don't want to keep mentioning him, but because a lot of the song does reference him, and due to the circumstances around this time, he was talking about him as well. I think taking innocent lives could be a reference towards the XXX theory, as well as these other PDF file allegations that were going around and are still going around. Why argue with these clowns if the circus is well at work? This line, hip hop and rap have become some sort of spectacle. Again, people really focusing on it being around a party, the music being solely talking about a party, and not really coming from genuine storytelling or having some sort of a message, or just being genuine and not fake. Even if you don't have a story, even if you kind of want to make like a whatever song, you're still being genuine in what you're saying and not fake and just putting out whatever so that you can get money. Just walk that man down. That'll do everyone a solid. It's love, but tough love sometimes gotta result in violence. If you parade in gluttony without giving truth to the youth, the graveyard is company. Just tell us what casket to choose. Now, I really love this line because it kind of summarizes the whole motivation behind what Kendrick has been doing, and kind of his mission is just to ensure that kids who are growing up and who are looking and listening to rappers aren't being sold these messages of scamming, of, again, taking Percocets or wanting to murder other people. In the past, hip hop and rap talked about those things. They talked about drugs, they talked about violence and things like that, but it wasn't a message of this is cool. It was solely people talking about their experiences, and also talking about the reason around why they may have been on drugs, the reason why they may have had to engage in some sort of violence. Not, I'm going to be over here not doing and engaging in any of this, but I'm going to rap about it because I know that's what is cool right now. I know that's what's going to sell. Some people who really take to heart music, someone like me who, when I hear music, I'm listening, I'm relating to the artist. And I think Kendrick kind of writes obviously from his own point of view, and Good Kid, Mad City, he talks about how he would be with his friends and listening to certain rappers and their music and relating to what was going on because he was also living that, but also talking about how he also wanted to do some of the things that these rappers were talking about because they felt it was cool. They felt that's how they were going to fit in, how they were going to identify and feel masculine or just accepted. And so if you are constantly pushing certain messages to these kids, they really have no hope. You're not giving them any hope to turn out a different way. And really, again, taking innocent lives. They party more than bitches. Tell me, what are you working for? They glorify scamming. You get chipped over this credit card. So again, as I was saying, these rappers are getting the money that they earn to then go and party. They're constantly partying and not really in life to get experiences to talk about. It's just constant partying, constant talking about partying. Then you have, rappers who do glorify scamming, or just the culture in general glorifies trying to get money fast. And how do you get money fast? Scamming. This reminds me of the whole Chase credit card scam that went around that a lot of people got caught up in because there was this video put out that Chase had a glitch, and you could take your card up there and like pull out money, like a bunch of money, even if you didn't have it in your account, something like that. But people were doing it, and then of course Chase is coming after them. Now they're spending years in prison. They have no freedom because people were glorifying getting money fast. It just gets people in trouble. And obviously, like, people are grown adults, and you should be smart enough, or you should at least know that probably not a good idea to do that, but some people don't. Some people genuinely follow what's, again, what's cool, what other people are doing just to fit in. And this is where it gets us. Influencers talk down because I'm not with the basic shit, but they don't hate me. They hate the man that I represent. And again, another line I love because it's so true. These influencers or like YouTubers, podcasters, streamers trying to talk about how, Kendrick isn't cool, or I don't want to listen to Kendrick because he's actually talking about things. He doesn't talk about girls. He doesn't talk about all these other things that are cool or basic, as Kendrick says. But they don't hate him specifically. They hate that he represents men that works on themselves, men who sit, self-reflect, and can change and grow from that, because it sets a new standard. It sets the bar higher. And those men don't want to be given a higher standard to look up to reach towards. They want the status quo to be at their level where they are on some basic shit. So Kendrick is someone who sticks to his values. He's patient. He doesn't seek validation from other men or other people in general. He's able to get his own validation, his own confidence from within. He's able to look at himself and all of his flaws and acknowledge those. Again, that scares or intimidates people who aren't able to do that. And so, of course, they're going to try and make it seem like this is not cool. This is not how we should be moving, because then I am going to have to step up and be a man. I am going to have to actually work on myself, and I don't want to do that. We hear him describe that in the next few lines. The type of man that never dick ride because I want a favor. The man that resides in patience. So where the soldiers at? The ones that lost it all and learned to learn from that. A thirst for life, head inside a book because he concerned with that. Information that'll change his life because he yearns for that. Dedication, finding out what's right because he can earn from that. Okay? He's literally saying, I am someone who has gone through shit. I'm not saying I haven't lost people. I haven't done things that I shouldn't have been doing, but I learned from that. And after learning from that, I then read books so that I could have more information. From me reading books, I realized there's a lot I don't know. There's also a lot I can learn to change the way I move in life, to get me to a place where I can earn money, the money that you want, the money that you are working towards, that you are putting out this music that doesn't have any substance to it. You can still earn that money by going about it in a different way. From reading books, you are then able to convey your story, convey your messages in different ways. He says, I feel for the women that deal with the clown and nerd shit. Can't blame them. Today they ain't really got much to work with. How many beat bitches harder than a lot of you ends? Would trade all of y'all for nip. I can't be proud of you ends. It's so true. Like, it sucks that women who are straight have to navigate the dating pool or be amongst men who, again, refuse to grow, to look at themselves, to self-reflect, to be a man. They just are here clowning, only worried about partying and getting money. Then we go into the chorus. God, give me life. Dear God, please give me peace. Dear God, please keep these lame ends away from me. Dear God, keep me shining. The fuck do they really think? Pocket watching, you must be the police. The last pocket watching part, obviously a callback to Drake literally filing a lawsuit, and in the lawsuit asking for Kendrick's contract. And it's like, if you're gonna hype yourself up to be this tough guy, then how are you gonna file a lawsuit and then ask for my contract and be pocket watching? Like, no, you must be the police. I also like how Professor Skye pointed out that the chorus of the song is a prayer, and it's like a prayer that someone would say maybe before a attack. Again, tying this whole theme up around Kendrick dropping on 9/11, this song being a bomb, a threat to the industry, something that stops the industry and puts the focus on what he's saying, what he's talking about. Verse 2, I think it's time to watch the party die. Street ends and the corporate guys, the rappers that report the lies. I need they families mortified. We can all do life without him, get they bodies organized. Tell me if you obliged. No more pillow talking, chump starting neighborhood wars. Dirty macking bitches cause your spirit is insecure. So obviously street rappers and corporate guys, he's talking about these rappers who are not really in the life, but speaking about the life and speaking about murdering and, again, violence when they haven't even committed any of that, or again, they're not around that, so they can't really relate. But again, pushing these messages onto the youth. Another one of my favorite lines, dirty macking with other women because you're insecure. When you don't have security in yourself, and Kendrick can speak from this because he talks about it in Mr. Morale. When you are not secure within yourself, you often seek that validation and security from other people. Hence why you would be going from woman to woman to woman to woman, hooking up with them, because that's how you get your validation. That is how you feel needed and wanted. The flashy end with nasty decisions, using money as a backbone. I want his head cracked before he's back home. The radio personality pushing propaganda for salary. Let me know when they turn up as a casualty. I want agony, assault, and battery. I see a new earth filled with beautiful people making humanity work. The flashy end with nasty decisions, using money as a backbone. This could either be Diddy, who was very flashy, who was obviously constantly using his money to get things done, to carry out certain acts, to intimidate other people. But as I've been kind of following along on the XXX theory, if you don't know about it, people are saying obviously that Drake put a hit out, allegedly. I want to say allegedly. So you're, again, hyping yourself up to be this tough guy, but in reality, you used money and you're hiding behind your money to save yourself, and you're really not that tough of a guy. And he talks about a new earth, and in Mr. Morale, pretty much the whole theme around that album is based off of Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth, and he really just talks about wanting to see a new world that people are moving through love and not through the pain body, as Eckhart Tolle talks about in the book. So I thought it was really cool that he pointed that out. Let's kill the followers, follow up on Poppin' Molly's, from the obvious degenerates that failing to acknowledge the hope that we trying to spread. If I'm not his vote, then you need to bring his fucking head or film that shit in high res. Like, he is talking so violent, but kind of sticking up for something that's not violent. We get back into the chorus, and verse 3, sometimes I wonder what Lecrae would do. F these ends up or show him just what prayer do. I want to be empathetic, my heart like D1, but I will. And then obviously the famous cutout where we don't know what he says after. So in this verse, he's specifically talking about two Christian rappers and kind of acknowledging that he wants to move in a holy way. He wants to be nice and holy and loving. But as he mentioned earlier, sometimes violence needs to be put into place. And although he wants to move holy, he also wants to see them go through the most pain, as I'm sure they have afflicted onto other people. Okay, it's time to get these devils out the way. Heavy metals on my sword. We settle hard disputes today. The ghetto Hollywood divorce. Say hello to your future fate. The culture bred with carnivores. You let them snack, they eat your face. Again, another one of my favorite lines in the song. And specifically, he's talking about these outside people that you've let into the culture. And you give them a little bit of leeway, you don't hold them accountable one or two times, they are going to come in and take over. They're going to eat your face. It comes from the colloquialism. They wonder why I'm not enthused to drop. The more visible you get, the more your spiritual is tried. It's cynical to say, I know these artists petrified. The end result, in jail by Jezebel or drugged up full of lies. We know that the more that you're having to drop, or the more that you put out into the ether, or that there are judgments around it, the more that you are susceptible to those judgments, to those comments towards you and your work, and the more that you are tried, your spiritual is tried. So when you have someone like Drake, who is unable to really take a break, who has to continue putting out music, continue being in the public eye, you're eventually going to get run down. You're going to be tired. You're going to need to rest, especially if you're an artist. So you're not going to have that time to really rest, think about new art, think about things, or go through experiences that you can then talk about. Instead, you're kind of just microwaving the same thing. You're putting out similar things just so that you can get the money you need, again, to cover your contract. But your spirit is down. You're tired all the time. And again, when he says the end result, in jail by Jezebel or drugged up full of lies, many times artists or rappers are caught up due to engaging with certain women or the way that they behave with those women, or they are being literally drugged up, literally taking drugs, but also being told lies by maybe these streamers, by these podcasters who are being paid to say those things, may not even really believe that or think that way, but are telling you that because they're being paid. So again, being drugged up with lies. I know my physical is tested all the time. I'm pitiful, sunk in place soon as I'm questioning my pride. I'm seeing ghosts blacking out, relapsing one thought at a time. I spare no feelings that ain't mine. I'm in my feelings when I slide. So I think he's just kind of describing, obviously people are always talking about Kendrick and his size. And that was a big thing that Drake focused on specifically during the beef. But not even that, just like his ability to perform the way that he does. And, people not really giving him his flowers. And so of course he's going to be in his feelings a little bit. He might relapse into old ways of thinking as any human being would. But then he says, and wonder what Lecrae would do. Terrace Martin said, I'm mentally with layers. True. I fled the market with my best regards. I paid your dues. And so it's up if you ain't one of ours. Is bad news. And he did. Kendrick came in and he released a bunch of new stuff that kind of brought us back into the fun of rap, the fun of a battle, even of breaking down the lyrics, of seeing how things relate, of talking about the stories that he's, telling or the messages that he's saying. And again, raising the standard or bringing back this other standard of music. You can't just put out whatever now. You actually have to think about the music and think about the art that you're putting out if you want to have as much of success and attention on you as before. My end, Jay Estrada said, I gotta burn it down to build it up. That confirmation real as fuck. It ain't too many real as us. Locking into what I trust, looking outside. The kids live tomorrow because today the party just died. And again, he drops this right before the music video awards. So people are not focused on Post Malone and Taylor Swift winning. They're focused on this song and what he's talking about. They're breaking down the song. And because he was able to kind of, again, shift the culture back towards shift the culture back to more authentic art. Now the kids have something to look forward to. Now the kids have messages that aren't just taking drugs and killing each other. They are able to listen to rappers who are telling their stories, who are using literary devices in their songs. Kids are able to learn what a double entendre is and really understand it because they're breaking down lyrics. I'm even able to learn about different things because I'm looking into the lyrics and looking back at what references this is. If Clips references a certain artist or song or movie, I'm looking back to see what that reference is and why he put it specifically in that line. So again, these kids are given another standard. They are then maybe, instead of being against people like Kendrick who are able to self-reflect, they are going to want to self-reflect. They are going to want to read books because that's going to be what's cool now. So that is just, like I said, a brief little deep dive into the lyrics so that you can really understand before we get into the real subject of the video and talk about some other things that we have watched this past year.
I think it's time to watch the party die.
This song feels like a eulogy, some sort of funeral procession where we are watching the party die. Felt like a collective ego death. But what is an ego death? By definition, it is the disappearance of an individual sense of self, removal of one's perception of self. To achieve an ego death, a person must reconcile conflicting archetypes, realize the similarities you have with everyone else, a process that can only occur during a period of intense suffering. And from my experience, An ego death, it really strips you of your titles, of your accolades, and forces you to sit with yourself and kind of reevaluate who you are without those titles, without those accolades, without any outside voices or kind of judgments placed on you. And when an individual goes through this or is faced with an ego death, they can either take that and sit with themselves and reflect and grow and change, or they can ignore it. And essentially, if you choose to ignore this, you will eventually come to a fall, to rock bottom. You will eventually fall off. And that is why it feels like what this song symbolized is an ego death. One of the main incidents or events being referenced in Watch the Party Die, of course, is Diddy and the Diddy parties. Diddy's first day of trial started in summer of 2025, I believe it was. Something I want to point out with the trial specifically is I wish the prosecutors would have had more doctors or experts specifically explain the cycle of abuse and really break down what examples of fraud, force, and coercion are and what they look like when it comes to human trafficking. Because I just felt like maybe the jurors didn't fully understand what that looks like and what that means. And when it comes to like human trafficking, domestic violence, things of that like nature, it is really hard to get people who are on the outside to understand what it's like being in that kind of relationship and how you can get sucked into it and how hard it is to leave. That is the main part, because during this trial, everyone kept saying, well, she could have just left. If it was me, I wouldn't have stayed, blah, blah, blah. And you're not thinking about the constant abuse verbally that they are sending to you, that they are telling you and keeping you under so that you won't leave. They make it to where you are dependent on them solely, dependent on them for money, dependent on them for your career, dependent on them for drugs. They get you on these drugs so that you do become addicted, so that you are dependent on them and you want to stay with that person to continue to get that. But also threatening that they can go after your family. And in Diddy's case specifically, multiple people around him saw the power that he had and saw him actually make moves that were threatening and harmful. So if it were me and this person is telling me, yeah, if you tell or if you leave, I'm going to come after your family, I'm going to believe them. I don't want to put my family in danger, so I'm not going to leave. I'm going to try and figure out a way I can and keep me and my family safe. But I don't think that people fully understood that during the trial. They were making it out to seem like people wanted to be there, that they just continued to put themselves in the same position. That's not how it works. But I digress. This also goes to show how misogynistic and miseducated our society is as a whole. Because again, people were not understanding the mindset of someone who is in an abusive relationship. Everything that was testified to and laid out in that trial qualified the definition of sex trafficking and therefore a RICO. But unfortunately, the jury did not understand that and did not agree. I was keeping up with the trial during the summer because I am interested in legal things, and obviously everybody was talking about it. And the trial was very heartbreaking to hear. On top of hearing people on the outside make comments about the things that were going on and the harm that was put onto other people, as someone who has been in a situation like that, very hurtful to hear people just dismiss. As someone who was able to put myself obviously in the mindset of those people and understand why it was hard to get out and understand why they may have stayed in those positions, it was very hard to hear people make comments around that. But even obviously also to hear what actually went on. Some days I was locked in and some days I had to take breaks because of how graphic it was. I don't understand how anyone could sit through that as a juror and still provide a not guilty verdict. However, I do think it really brought to light all of the things that Diddy did. His mask fell, which we saw more of in the documentary that was released by 50 Cent. Now, I do think 50 is not the most reliable narrator, and the documentary definitely had a certain angle they were pushing. I wish it would have focused a little bit more on the victims and not so much sensational speculations, but I do appreciate those things being brought into the public and talked about because they can start important conversations, the main one being holding men and people in general accountable for their abusive actions. I think this trial really did, again, put into the forefront some things that go on behind the scenes, opened our eyes to some things, and started conversations that really needed to be had. So considering the kids are calling Diddy the boogeyman, I think we indeed watched the fall of Diddy's ego and end of the party.
They don't owe no money. Man, I mean, just sold that shit. But they did some bullshit. They sold the masters too, though. That was some bullshit. But hell yeah, man. That was some bullshit. That was.
Yeah, that is some bullshit. And you know what?
Now, I'm not gonna lie, the Young Thug jail cell calls had me weak. Like, why were they releasing every day for weeks? Literally every day for weeks. On top of that, it exposed so much about Young Thug and some behind the scenes of the industry. And again, we got a little bit more context to what Kendrick was talking about in Watch the Party Die. Young Thug did make some mentions in regards to getting Kendrick on a feature.
You nigga get too big. I don't want to do no feature. Why? Why you don't want to do no feature? Why wouldn't you want to do a feature for a superstar? Like, you ain't like goddamn Street calling you for a song, you know?
He let us know that one, Kendrick doesn't charge, which, goes to his character. He only gives it to people he really believes deserves a feature or that he wants to align with. Gave more explanation on the Metro Boomin situation, explaining that Drake was basically not allowing Metro to grieve after his mom died and wanted music from him anyway. And he was like admitting basically he was just trying to team up with anyone who would want to give him hits. Young Thug just he was trying to get Drake, he was trying to get Kendrick, he was trying to get anyone that would put his name in the limelight. Which I know artists do this all the time. At the end of the day, they do need money to survive, and this is their job. However, if you are solely in this game for the money and to flex, it's when the music starts to get diluted, and it allows for people outside of the culture to come in and essentially buy the culture because they're going to pay you however much, you're going to take it, and you're going to push out whatever they want you to push out. Culture is curated over decades. It comes from experience and storytelling, whether it's through art, movies, or music. All of that takes time and real life experiences to create. So only linking up with artists who can make you hits, one, shows you don't have confidence in your own craft to get there, but two, that you're not taking the time to put out a quality product or piece. You're just basically using the same formula and throwing something out and seeing if it sticks or not. Which brings me to the Fuck the Streets movement that we also saw kind of towards the end of the year come out. When Young Thug went around giving interviews about his time in jail and subsequent calls that had been released, he did make a good point.
Trap supposed to be healing, bro. You in there talking
How
shit.
the fuck I'm a heal in the midst of the fire? How I'm a heal in fire?
He's right. It's hard to heal and try and be different or see a different point of view when you're surrounded by the same environment, people, or circumstances that harmed you in the first place. Young Thug in that moment was realizing what it's like to experience an ego death. Now, he could have taken the route of working on his mental while he was locked up, maybe did some reading and working out to feel better physically as well as mentally, which would have then given him probably a lot of content and storytelling he could have used on an album when he got out, like Gunna did. However, he chose the opposite and still hasn't sat down to heal, which is how we get this. Again, a money grab, or what we're calling here the party. Then we had 21 Savage come out and speak about how it's F the streets and we should not be pushing messages of killing each other. And although I agree, obviously, with this message, I do hope that he's being genuine in his message and understanding that some people are in the streets for survival and it's not that hard to just get out and say fuck the streets. I think he's mainly saying this, however, because his album didn't really sell and he no longer is able to use, again, this old formula to sell. The bar has been raised or reset back to quality, strategical, and intentional hip hop. On top of the Young Thug jail calls, Drake lawsuits, and artists like Big X the Plug claiming there is no room for growth in hip hop, we have another big artist of my generation and one of my personal favorites previously selling out. Nicki going full MAGA was definitely not surprising, especially after the way that she's been moving within the past few years. But it was really hurtful and disappointing to see her be so dismissive of the LGBTQ community that has essentially kept her relevant. I think that Nicki lost a lot of her black female fans after the initial Meg beef, like the very first one. And so the alphabet community are the ones who have really kept her new stuff alive. I think there are multiple reasons why Nicki is doing this. I think she does have some of the beliefs that they do. I think she does feel the way that they do as well. I also think she needs money right now. And right-wing, red pill type of rhetoric is being paid well. And I think Nicki also hasn't really, been respected by her peers or given the same accolades as some of her peers. And it seems she is someone who really seeks that external validation. So placating to that side, she in her head is thinking will bring her some sort of respect. And for them, they think it brings them, that side, some sort of culture cachet because she was once a part of the culture and embraced and loved by the culture. Another example of choosing not to acknowledge your ego, choosing not to sit and to heal, but instead going where the money is. These are just some of the bigger things that happened last year as we watched the party die that Kendrick kind of mentioned or alluded to in the song before we even got into 2025. I think in the next few years we will continue to see the downfall of commercial rap and a renaissance or a rebirth of quality music being consumed. It always gets worse before it gets better. So those are my thoughts on the big events that happened last year in regards to kind of this song popping off everything. And I'm interested to see again the continue of the fall. I think it will continue this year. I don't think it'll be fully done. We are going to continue to see more and more things be revealed and the institutions fall apart. So thank you guys for watching. I know it has been a long time since I've posted on here. I recorded like an hour video of the part 2 of my Kendrick and Beyonce series. It took me months, literally months, to edit that video, and I uploaded it on here, and of course it was blocked. Went in, tried to edit it, tried to take some of the things out, and it just was gonna end up being too much, so I am gonna have to re-record that. But I wanted to take a break from it because honestly it was really bringing me down and making me feel like it just wasn't giving me energy to record anything else. So I'm gonna try and go back to that, but I do appreciate you guys for sticking around. I know that it takes some time for me to get these videos out, but I do want to take my time a little bit more so that I'm giving you guys quality stuff. So don't expect one like every week, but I do want to be a little bit more consistent and at least do one every month, if not 2 a month, but we'll see.